really interesting poll is coming out of North Carolina, where Bloomberg's actually tied with Sanders at 22% in the Survey USA poll, and Biden's in third at 20%. And in Oklahoma, Bloomberg actually has a CHS poll. He's actually leading with 20% of the vote. Sanders is at 14 and Biden's at 12. In South Carolina, which I was going to bring up too, which is really, really unique, which is Biden's kind of like firewall, which is if he doesn't win this state, his campaign is going to be in major trouble because donors already right now are running because his whole election, his whole reason why people should vote for him, his reason was that he's the most electable to be Donald Trump. But it's really hard to prove that when you've already lost the first two states. He got like fourth in Iowa and fifth in New Hampshire. And in Nevada, if he does not do well and gets third or fourth or fifth, and if he does not win South Carolina, that whole electability thing goes completely out the window, which kind of causes him exactly major problems. And he already is strapped on cash. I think he's less than $7 million already, which is really, really challenging for his campaign, which by March 3rd, it's pretty much a national primary because it's 15 states. In those next 3 weeks, 60% of the delegates are actually going to be awarded. So that's really unique. So I got a South Carolina poll, which is really interesting. It's a research poll. And he like a couple months ago, or like a month and a half ago, I think 6 weeks ago, he had like a 30 to 35 point lead in South Carolina. And because he had such huge support with the African-American vote, but now it's actually really, really close. He's actually tied with Sanders at 23%. And Tom Steyer, another billionaire in the race, has been pumping a bunch of money in South Carolina. And he's helped a lot of social issues, and he's really gone to the African-American churches, and he's really pulling well the African-Americans. So he's at 20%, taking a lot of the Biden vote away, and Buttigieg is at 15%. So the biggest thing I'm looking for is obviously Nevada. Joe Biden has got to be banking on finishing second, or that's going to be another whole negative week in media coverage, which is even going to sink his campaign even more. So he's banking on it. I think the Biden campaign, they don't think they're going to beat Sanders in Nevada, but they're really, really hoping that he can finish second and he doesn't finish third or fourth because they cannot afford another bad week of a media cycle going into South Carolina, which is his ending firewall, which is really, really, really important for him. Because if he doesn't win South Carolina, I could really see him dropping out of the race into being a two-person national race between Bloomberg and Bernie Sanders. So a couple national polls just came out too, which I wanted to give you guys some updates into, which I thought was really, really interesting. So the ABC 2020 Dem primary poll, Sanders is at 32%, Biden is at 16%, and Bloomberg is at 14%, but Bloomberg has really been rising. And another Everson poll, it's Sanders at 29%, Biden at 22%, and Bloomberg at 14%. And another economist poll is Sanders at 24%, Biden 18%, Warren 16%, and Bloomberg 11%. So those are national polls. But if you really look about it in the national polls, Biden, until like the last 3 weeks, was up 10 to 15 to 20 points in these national polls. But Bloomberg, with all of his ad spending and all of his advertisements, has really shot up and taken a bunch of Joe Biden's support, especially in the African-American community. He's almost polling as getting as much African-American support as Joe Biden, which is very, very concerning for Joe Biden's campaign. I think in Nevada, which is coming up in this debate, is in Nevada. It's in Las Vegas, and the Nevada primary caucus is on Saturday. So I think the biggest thing is Sanders will do well because he has a lot of support in the Latino community. He's really pulling well with Latinos, which is very, very important in that state. So Joe Biden really has to pump a bunch of resources in there and try to get second place because and this is just my opinion, I don't think he can go another week of doing poorly in another caucus or primary, and his campaign will actually hold on. So getting second there, so that's why I think Joe Biden's got to get second there, and he's got to win South Carolina, or his whole electability argument is out the window, and Sanders continues to surge. So my whole thought on the Sanders point is he's doing really well because that progressive base of 30 to 35% is all in his favor. He's pretty much consolidated that base. Warren in the last couple months has completely fallen off. And the problem is there's a bunch of moderates with Bloomberg getting in the race and Biden not doing as well. He's been taking a lot of votes from Biden. Also, Buttigieg and Klobuchar, they're still polling at 8 or 9% nationally, taking away a lot of votes. Obviously, I don't think Buttigieg or Klobuchar can actually win this election or win this Democratic primary because they just don't have the support in the African American and Latino communities like Bloomberg, like Sanders, like Biden does have, but I'm worried about he keeps on going down. So I think it's gonna be really, really unique. Biggest thing is watch the debate tonight. I think you're gonna see a lot of people going after Bloomberg because he continues to rise in the polls. I think Biden has to go after him because Biden is losing support by the second, and his whole campaign, I think, pretty much concludes on this 2 weeks doing halfway decent. And then on top of that, you got a big deal with, does Bernie Sanders, his perfect foil, the billionaire Mike Bloomberg, the people that he goes out against all the time. I think Sanders is going to try to contrast himself with Bloomberg and go after him because Sanders knows that Bloomberg probably in the end will be his biggest competition. So that's kind of the week. That's what's going to happen tonight. That's kind of what the next 2 or 3 weeks looks like. I'll be back with you at the end of this week talking about how the debate went, how I think people did, and what Super Tuesday looks like. And does Bloomberg actually hold himself decently on the stage and come off as presidential and is able to answer all the attacks that people are going to have against him? Because I really think that's a thing. Can he show that he's presidential, that he can handle taking on the incoming attacks? And can he hold on to this debate where he does decent enough where it doesn't affect his Super Tuesday polling numbers? That's the big question. Thank you for listening. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and blessings. Another great day in America.